Hey, it's Matt Karamazov. Welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking about Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. It's a science fiction thriller, and it's one that I finished the last 130 pages of this book all in one sitting without getting up from my couch at all. I just kept turning pages and turning pages just until I got to the last one and there were no further pages to turn. Like it is the definition of a page turner. Now I took a little bit of a chance on this book, having never read any Blake Crouch before. I've just heard or seen Dark Matter and one of his other books, Recursion, just pop up again and again on Instagram, and I took a chance, like I said, and I was richly rewarded. Now, I usually have two different audiences in my mind when I do these book reviews. On the one hand, people who love science fiction, and for good reason. I mean, science fiction's awesome. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And then, another audience who, doesn't consider it serious literature. It's sort of like infra dig, to use the Latin expression. But there's a lot of science here, and there's a lot of philosophy as well, and introspection and things of that nature that we'll get into just a little bit ahead in the video. And you almost don't even notice it. You could read it in several different ways, which I think is one of the things that makes a really good book. It's sort of like The Simpsons, actually. Like, as an adult, you can get a lot of the jokes on a deeper level, and as a kid, you laugh at Homer Simpson doing dumb shit. This is much the same way. You can, if you love science and you love philosophy, you're thinking about the big questions, you'll get a lot out of Dark Matter. But if you just want a ripping good time, a story, like I said, you read 130 pages without, thinking of time of day or bathroom breaks or food at all, then this is also your book as well. So we're going to get into a lot of stuff here in Dark Matter, best ideas, best quotes, stuff like that right now. I'm going to throw some plot points at you right now, but a lot of them come straight from the back of the book and the first couple of chapters. So they seem like spoilers on the face of it, but they're really not. First thing is, the main character, Jason Dessen, he's a physicist, and by all accounts a really good physicist, but there's a different path in life that he's taken. So he could have one set of choices that he had at one point in his life. He could have dedicated his life and his time and his effort to his career and making big advances, important advances in physics, and become like a highly renowned professor, what have you. But he made a different choice, and the choice was to marry a woman named Daniela and have a son and just a great family life. And in the beginning, for characters that don't show up again until a little bit later, they're sympathetic on a level that's really interesting. So you care about Daniela, you care about their son, and I think, I'm not going to tell you what you think, but I think they have a great relationship, and it's something that for some people it would be worthwhile to give up a potentially lucrative scientific career for that kind of family life. But that being said, there is an alternate version of Jason Dessen who does not think so, and he is the version that chose a different life path. He is the Jason Dessen that we meet in the first chapter is kidnapped by who knows who. But he is ripped away from this life that he's chosen, and so he has to sort of, again, this is where the science comes in, he has to sort of make his way through the multiverse and try and find his way back to the life that he always wanted to live. So Dark Matter is evidently mostly about choices and how, we're always making our own path, and we sort of make our own path by walking. And every time we open a new door, sometimes we close a window. And we're always doing this every single day, every single moment of our lives. And basically the scientific premise comes from quantum mechanics and the theory of the multiverse, which basically states that every single reality is an actual reality that exists. So every choice that we make branches off the universe, like the universe branches off, and those separate realities actually exist, but we are living in one of them where we made this particular choice. And so Jason Dessen, the main character, he's always making these choices, and he's aware now that every single thing that he does matters, which is a huge life lesson. I think it's one of the most important things a human being could possibly learn. So it goes back to what I said about the two levels. You can read it, the kidnapping at night takes, tearing him away from everything he knows, this crazy adventure to try and get back to his family. It's a page Turner, but as well, you can start thinking about how everything you do matters, which is amazingly interesting. At least I think we're always creating and closing our own opportunities. To illustrate this by way of an example, we'll say, someone, could be you, whatever, somebody who works a job, who you obviously chose that particular job for some reason. You live in a certain city. It may be an accident of your birth. You may never moved away. But say you were born in some city just by accident. Obviously, as everyone, nobody is asked whether or not they want to be born. It's your choice to stay there. And with certain qualifications, I mean, you can choose basically any city that you want to live in. Say you move to someplace else, an entirely new set of opportunities opens for you in your life, and it closes every single other opportunity that you had in that previous city. So say you live in New York and you move to Los Angeles or something. Obviously New York is just New York's almost like a bad example because it just so many choices, like it just crowding in on you. But everyone that you could possibly date in New York, everybody who would possibly hire you, anything like any sports teams that you would attend, any criminals that would potentially prey upon you, any natural or man-made disasters or whatever that happen in or to that city. If you move away from all that, none of those causes can create any effects in your life. But you move to Los Angeles and you're exposed to an entirely separate array of possible choices, possible dangers. And even staying in New York is a choice. So every single thing that we do matters. Every choice or non-choice that we make is a cause that has effects in our lives and everyone that we're connected to as well. We're embedded in a network of other people, and everything that we do and say to other people affects them. We put someone else in a great mood, and they go on to have a fantastic day and positively influence, somebody else's life. Those have ripple effects across time, and that's really the driving force behind Dark Matter, and it drives a lot of the plot, drives a lot of this philosophical explanation, and it just makes it an incredibly compelling book. So naturally, I sort of hesitate to give away any plot points or to talk more about the plot itself. Having read it already, I sort of forget what I learned later on versus what I knew just going into it. So I don't want to give anything away in case you do end up picking up this fantastic book. But I do think you should be aware of the idea of the adjacent possible, which is basically the fancy name for what we've been talking about, how every choice that you make leads into a possible array of further choices. So you think of it as being in one room with three doors, those three doors representing your three choices. So if you go into door number 1 as opposed to door number 3, inside door number 1, you're going to be presented with a completely different array of options than you would have had if you gone through the other door. And from that starting point, it branches off into something ridiculous, basically an infinite multiplicity of universes, which makes up Dark Matter. Okay, so I'm going to get into some of the better quotes from the book and just sort of wrap this up a little bit, because every single thing that I say about the book sort of leads me more into the possibility of giving stuff away, and I don't want to do that. But speaking of giving stuff away, at the end of every single month, I pick one of my YouTube subscribers at random and I buy them a book of their choice or a $25 Amazon gift card. So all you have to do is basically be subscribed to the channel and then sign up for my email list, which is where I announce the winner. So you can do that down in the video description. As well, for every new subscriber to the channel, I also donate $1 to the children's educational charity called First Book. So what they do is they give underprivileged children access to books which they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. So I think it's a very important charity. So every month I add up all the new subscribers and I donate $1 to First Book. So with that, let's get into some of the better quotes and wrap this up. Okay, so I got my quotes from Dark Matter right here. So I take notes on every single book that I read. So I've been doing this for almost a decade now. I've got more than 900 or notes on more than 900 books. They're all available on my Patreon. But we're talking about Dark Matter right now, so I'll get into the first quote. And We all live day to day completely oblivious to the fact that we're part of a much larger and stranger reality that we can possibly imagine. Evidently true no matter where you look. There's so much more to reality than meets the eye. I mean, quantum mechanics, who would have guessed that? Even gravity, who came up? Wow, insane. Like you would never, it's so counterintuitive. Anyways, then I think of all the possible events that could have stopped this moment from ever happening. You know, obviously we were talking about that before, the adjacent possible. Everything in your life had to happen this exact way in order for you to be living the life that you're living now. I think that's rather incredible. No matter if you're happy or unhappy with the results, if any single tiny thing was different, it could have been completely different. Next quote. We live in a state of decoherence in one reality because we're constantly observing our environment and collapsing our own wave function. Collapsing our own wave function. I don't pretend to know much about wave functions, but I thought that was sort of like an interesting way of putting it. Sort of like I said earlier about moving down the hallway, you open doors and closing windows. So collapsing your own wave function is sort of, collapsing every possibility that you had in this moment. Even like the next word out of my mouth, I could say anything. It doesn't even have to be an English word. Muffins. Who predicted that? Nobody. But anyway, so once you choose, your wave function collapses. So that's it. You've made your choice. And so we're always doing that. We're always collapsing our own wave functions. And super cool to think about. Okay, next quote. So how can something so powerful in one world not bleed through into this one? And he's talking about his love for Daniela, and his son, who in some of these worlds that he visits, he hops around in different worlds. That's not giving anything away. They don't know who he is, and how can the love that he feels for these people so strongly in one universe not bleed into the other universes? Very, very cool. And then this one. So, in the evening, I'm still sitting on the bench on Eleanor Street, across from the brownstone that isn't mine, watching our neighbors arrive home from work and school. What a miracle it is to have people to come home to every day. To be loved, to be expected. I thought I appreciated every moment, but sitting here in the cold, I know I took it all for granted. And how could I not? Until everything topples, we have no idea what we actually have, how precariously and perfectly it all hangs together. The sky darkens. Very cool passage. And then, okay, so two more. If one tiny thing were different, they wouldn't be the people I love. I thought that was very cool too. And then the last one, which sort of informs everything we've been talking about. Am I who I was supposed to be? Is this the life I was meant to be living? So those are a sample of my notes from Dark Matter. I have a few more. You can find these down in the video description. Like I said, they're all available on my Patreon as well. But Dark Matter, fantastic start to my reading year. This is the first book I finished January 2021, and like I said, I read the last 130 pages in just without even getting up. So highly, highly, highly recommend this book. Even if you don't normally read science fiction, think of it like The Simpsons. There are jokes for adults, jokes for kids, and there's a storyline and philosophical investigations for everyone, basically. So I'll wrap things up. Obviously, I highly, highly, highly recommend Dark Matter. There's something in it for everyone. I mean, it was just such a fantastic start to my reading year this year. And so down below, you can get all my notes from the book, and you can get the book itself on Amazon. And as well, like I mentioned earlier, for every new subscriber to the channel, I donate $1 to the children's educational charity First Book. And as well, if you subscribe to the channel and sign up for my email list, you can win a $25 Amazon gift card or a book of your choice. So there's that, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.
I don't waste time, no, I make time. All these people wanna hate, fine, I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating. Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable.